Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm the EDPM boss. Now in this video, I'm going to do a review of the CSEC EDPM 2025 paper 2. I'm just going to basically go through the questions that would have came on that paper, right? So that you can basically look at what is being done to see if what you would have done on the exam is what you were expected to do, all right? So I've been getting some feedback, and most of what persons are saying is that the paper is rather manageable, however, it's too lengthy for the duration given for the exam. All right, understandable. I would say it's rather easier than expected, right? That's my view on it. It's rather easier than expected. If you go through the paper and you compare it against other past papers, you'd say this is much more easier than the others. All right, we can talk about the question. We can talk about the spreadsheet question, for example, right? Not what expected, right? Very, very easy. But enough said, just going to go through the paper now. All right. So let's look at our question one. All right. So question one. Question one, as you know, is always the speed test. Same thing as the copy test, as you see right here. Now, with the question one, basically the same instruction, right? You know, the only thing will change is the information and maybe the layout, the paragraph layouts, right? So let's look at the instructions first. As I said, same layout, type in double line spacing, equal margins of 1 inch, times in Roman and size 12, right? Basically the same instruction as others. Paragraphs are in block style, right? So everything is at the left margin, everything starts at the left, right? You know, if you look back at previous papers, you notice that some of them is indenting style, some of them are in indented style, right? Moving away from the margin. But for this question, you know, you have to type everything and you have to do so accurately to get the full marks, right? I know many persons might not have gotten to type everything, right? But I've typed majority of it, right? So remember, accuracy and the amount that you type, that's what will determine your marks, all right? So enough said about the speed test, as there's nothing much to discuss about it, right? It's quite straightforward. You just type it as seen, as we said, and you type it accurately, and that's what determines your marks. All right. So right on to question two. Now, question two, as seen, is a letter. Now, in the previous video, I would have told you that majority of the times, if you check the past papers, question two is always a letter. Most of the time, it's always a letter, right? Only last year, we can look back at last year's paper, you will see that it was a memorandum that was given, right? And it was in a mail merge. You had to do it in mail merge as well, right? So last year's paper was, you know, kind of more challenging, you can say, right? But this one, they're back to their usual ways with the letter, right? So let's look at the instructions. So A4 or letter size, that's what you should use, right? Suitable letterhead, as you know, right? Appropriate logo. This time they are saying you should use a footer as well, right? Utilizing the information given in the sample below. All right, so the paragraph layout or the letter layout that you should use is semi-block style, full punctuation, and as they said, single line spacing. Now, you would have learned that all letters you type them in single line spacing. So even if the instruction was not there, you should have known that it is single line spacing that you type your letters. All right, letter it should be 1 inch. Margins all are row. All right, type the body, the letter using calibre, level point, right? You know that's what it's on by default. By default, the font size and the font type, right? Microsoft Word gives you that by default. So you didn't have to change anything. That's what you would have gotten it on. So you got that mark easily without even doing anything. All right. So let's look into the question. So the question, as you are seeing, are the letters you're seeing. You have a number of instructions, quite straightforward. This right here, as you see, the name of the organization, right? You're seeing must use Calabria font style, right? Size 14, all caps and bold. You should left align the information. Gonna insert a logo right there to the left, right? A level point font, initial caps. So the first letter of each word is capitalized. It's already done. All right, but yes, that's what you were expected to do. All right, now down this section where we have the telephone, the fax, and email address, you're seeing left align, center, and right align. Now, in the exam, you might be thinking to yourself, some person maybe have been thinking to themselves, how can you left align, center align, and right align text that is in the same line, separate text that is in the same line? That can't work. Well, normally it can. However, if you use the tabs feature, it can actually work. Now, you should have learned about the left tab, the right tab, the center tab, decimal tab, and bar tab under the topic tabulation, right? So you can set these different tabs, right? And they will actually work in the same line as they are displayed, right? So you don't have to use a left tab. You can just simply use the left alignment key, right? However, to get this in the center, you'll have to set a center tab, right? Basically, you'd have to set a center tab. So you set the tab stop position at a particular uh, measurement on the page, right? And when you type, text will flow evenly from that point, left and right. So you have a central point. I'm going to show you an example what I'm talking about. You have a central point, and when you type that information, it will flow evenly to the left and to the right. When you set a right tab, right, the information will flow to the left of that tab stop position. All right. And as you see, the instructions is level point font, calibrate body, and you insert a line. This line should be on 3 point. Now, this 3 point they're talking about is the weight of the line, basically the thickness, right, of the line. So let's look at this before we move any more forward. All right. All right. So as you're seeing on screen, this is the letter question. Now, by the header, as you're seeing, type it as seen, right? If you notice, you see a little mark right here. It's the center tab. Over here, you see another mark. That's the right tab. As I said, you didn't have to put any over here. You could use a regular left alignment key. All right. But let me just go and show you where I would find that, where you would find that. All right. You go to the paragraph layout option. All right. You go to tabs, and as you're seeing, I would have set 3.2 inches away from the margin for the center tab and 6.2 for the right tab. That's how you would have gotten to display the information same line using different alignments. All right. So that's what you were expected to do. All right, some persons may have applied just the regular tabs feature by pressing the tab key, right? Hopefully you'll get marks for that, but basically this is what you were expected to do. All right. Now for the line, as I said, the line is a basic shape. So what you would do, you would go to insert and shapes. All right, so you choose an auto shape. The auto shape will be a basic line, right? Now, how you get it to look like this, or what is the 3 point that they are talking about? So when you go to format line, you go to shape outline, you go to weight, all right? It should be on 1 by default, however, 3 point is what they said you are supposed to use in the instruction. All right. So that is it for the header. Let's move to the body of the document. All right. So let's look. So as you're seeing here, you see it says sample letterhead right here. Many persons may have been wondering, should this be typed? Should this be in the document? No, it should not. If you can recall in the instruction, it says utilizing information given in the sample below, right? So this is just here to show that this is what they're talking about, the sample letterhead. All right. So let's look at this down here. As we're seeing, see some information displayed, right? This is center, right? This is a font type, right? And this is a font size for this information that they have displayed here. So as you see, some simple manuscript signs, right? You know this basically as a number sign, right? But as it relates to EDPM and manuscript, you know that this is a manuscript sign that is used when you are supposed to insert a space, right? Now, right here, no spaces here. This is right, it's basically closed up. So they want you to insert a space right here where shown. All right. Right here is an abbreviation, PRO in this case, right? Is a position, right? So it's public relations officer, more than likely, right? That's what you should have spelled out, right? And as they say, place at the bottom center, right? Italicize. Now, this information, many persons may have been wondering where to place it, right? So many persons may have been confused. So they have been wondering, should it be placed underneath the line? Should it be placed in the header, underneath where the telephone and so forth are displayed? Where should it go? Now, we always tell you, read the instruction carefully, right? And you more than likely figure out what to do. Now, if you recall up here, they said appropriate, letterhead with appropriate logo and a footer, right? And a footer. So this information displayed here should be displayed in the footer section of the page. All right. So we look back at that. So you utilize or you apply all the formatting that you would have been instructed to apply. You place it in the footer. We look at it on the document afterwards. All right. So to the body of the document now. But you just type it as is following instruction. You write the reference, you insert the current date, right? You write information as C, right? Type information as C. So we are here. All right. Now, notice the instruction said semi-block letter. As you know, or you should have known, that semi-block letter, certain elements are placed more over to the right, not directly to the left. For example, the date. So the date should be more over to the right-hand side of the page, right? This should not be so either. No indenting is done with a semi-blocked letter. And as you see, right here is indented and here is not indented. So you know something must be wrong, right? Because when you're typing letters, when you're typing any document, by the way, but let's focus on letters. When you're typing letters, you should apply one layout, right? One letter layout. So if it's block style, it's block style. You can't have a mixture. Must be consistent, all right? So this should be at the left margin, no indenting, all right? And as we said, the date is to the right. All right, so let's go through a number of manuscript signs and abbreviations. This we're just going to quickly go through them. All right, so you know this is an insert symbol, right, as it relates to manuscript. So you know you'd insert this word here, see lines underneath the C here and the C here. So you know that you should capitalize these letters, right? They want this information displayed with initial caps. So the first letters, right, of each word that's displayed here should be in capital. So you'll change these to letters, C for cleaning and the C for collection, capitalize. All right, let's go through. Right here, you would omit the word service. Down here, you would insert the word each. All right, so hope everybody did these. Right, you don't leave the abbreviations like these. Right, you're supposed to spell them out. All right, so your first paragraph will be good if you completed those instructions. All right, insert the schedule only from 2B here. What schedule are they talking about? Now it's the schedule down here, right? This table, information displayed in this table. All right, that is what should be inserted here. All right, so after you finish typing up your document and then you do your question 2B, the next question, then you basically copy and paste that table or schedule right here, all right, as instructed. All right, moving to the next paragraph. So a new paragraph right here, same as the one above, insert, symbol, so insert this information right here, right? When you reach here, you see word marked out. Usually when you see a word marked out, first thing comes to mind is to delete or to omit. However, if you notice, you see this STET, stet, right? That you see a broken line displayed underneath the word. This is telling you to leave it as is. Leave unchanged. That's what stet means. So don't worry to omit the information. You're just going to write back the information that is displayed or the word that is displayed in this case. All right. So hope everybody did that. All right. And you didn't omit this word. All right. Now let's move. So right here, basically, this information displayed here, the sentence displayed here should go underneath, right? So it should basically be the last sentence in this paragraph, right? You write out the word each or type out the word each, I should say, right? And that would be good for this paragraph. Next paragraph, don't see any problems, right? So it's good, looks good to me. You know that you start at the margin, no indenting right here. All right, everything else is okay. This is yours sincerely. And over here, some persons may have a little confusion. Yeah, you see AB type is initial add to reference. All right, so you're going to insert your initial here. So let's say your name is John Brown. So it should be AB slash JB, right? That's what should be written. Now you add it to this right here, the reference at the end of it. All right. So as long as you did all of that, you should maximize on your marks. All right. You should get full marks. As long as you did that all, you should get full marks. And as we noticed, we said that it's a semi-block style. Therefore, some elements are displayed to moreover to the right hand side as you see. This would be here, right? The complementary clause would be displayed over here. And as I said, the date should be over to the right as well. All right. So let's basically just look at sample, right? That I would have prepared as it relates to the letter. So as I said, basically this is how the letter would look. I didn't type every single thing, but here is where the schedule would go, right? And down here in the footer is where the information displayed would go. All right. So let me go back to the paper. All right. So moving on to question 2B. Now, question 2B, persons were rather unsure as to what software they were supposed to use. Some persons thought it was Microsoft Word, while others were thinking it was Excel, right? Now, persons who use Excel, you actually use the correct software, all right? Now, persons may be wondering, oh, why would it be Excel? Why couldn't it be Word, right? It could have been Word. However, based on how the table is set up, right, and based on how the instructions are set up, we are saying that Excel is the most suitable one to apply right here. All right, now let's go. So let's identify some of the things that we would have seen that made it more than likely Excel instead of Word. Now, if you notice on previous papers, when you get an Excel question, most of the times it doesn't tell you that you're to use Excel. It doesn't say use Excel to prepare this or use a spreadsheet software. Most of the times it does not say that. But what it says is use a suitable software or use the most suitable software. Now, if you notice up at the letter question, nothing like that was said in the instruction, right? Nothing like that was said in the instruction. So this right here is one of the instructions that helped to clarify that Excel or a spreadsheet software is what was supposed to be used in creating this table or schedule. All right. Another thing you can look at is the fact that the merge and center feature was applied. Now, merging can work in Microsoft Word as well, but I think you're more exposed to it in Excel, right? Your teachers must have exposed you more to merge and center in Microsoft Excel. You're more familiar with it there, right? So if you notice right here, you see this cell, these two cells look rather bigger than the rest over here. If you can notice, if you look closely, you see that you have a line right here, and that line went straight across over here. So we can see that these were two, or this right here, were two separate cells. However, they have been merged to make one cell. All right. So the merge and center feature is the next thing that helped us to know that Excel is what to be used, what was to be used. All right. So let's go through. So as they said, make all adjustments, right? Use margins of 0.5 and so forth. So you follow those instructions, right? You know that you would merge and center this. So as it basically is the heading, so you will merge and center it at the top for it to come at the center over the information displayed. Now, you should know that when you're applying the merge and center to put in a heading over information displayed in a table format, you determine that by using the amount of columns displayed. So, we have 4 columns. So, it's A, B, C, right? So, you merge from A1 to D1 and you can insert that. You can always merge from A2 to D2 and you can insert the information in the next line as well. And you basically can start here at A3. All right. You can do that. So simple, you follow the instructions, center caps bold, right? They are saying that you should capitalize all these column headings, center, and bold. All right. Now right here, you see the sign again, state. And as we said, it means leave unchanged. All right. So word marked out, however, broken line underneath it and the sign state. Therefore, you are instructed to type the word community. Put back the word community instead of omitting the word. All right, moving on. So what you were supposed to do right here, as said, you are supposed to merge going downwards. So you merge 2 cells here going down, you merge 2 going down, merge 2 going down, merge 2 going down there, merge 2 going down here as well. But right here, no merging occurs. As you see, the line goes right across. All right, the line goes right across, unlike the above. All right, as you see, line stops right here because they merged downwards. So when they reach here, no merging occurs. All right, and it's the same thing that has been applied to the first column. All right, so simple as that. Merge going down, right, for the first 2 columns. All right, starting from Monday, as you see, right, to Friday as Saturday, and the truck number for Saturday, that section is not merged. All right. The other thing, transpose. So TRS right here stands for transpose. Transpose basically means to switch, right? Position. So you're going to put 830 up here and 630 down the bottom. All right, and you'll switch these two as well. All right, what is this? The instruction says, so you're going to place these at the left. So you left align and you spell out the days, right? Don't write MON and so forth. You should spell out the days in its entirety or in their entirety. All right. Center align cell contents. Everything these two cells must be centered. Instruction for the typist. Please type schedule using level point calibre by default. It's on that by default. So even if you didn't change anything, you still would have got that mark. All right, because it's on that by default. So basically, you do that full marks, right? You would basically complete the question. You would basically follow all the instructions. I would have done it appropriately. All right. Now we notice that many times persons prepare a table and they forget to put a border all around the information. All right. Remember the grid lines that you see on the spreadsheet, right? Basically, they are like imaginary lines. If you decide to print that document or if you go to print preview, you won't see those lines. So therefore, the border is needed. Only when the border is displayed, the lines will show if you should print information. All right, when you don't need to get into that, but just a reminder. All right, so moving on now. So going to question 3. Now, question 3 is a legal document, right? It says save as agreement, right? And just by looking at it, we know that it's a legal document, all right? Now, legal document is a topic as well, right, that you should have went through. Now, when you're preparing legal documents, there are a number of instructions that you should follow, right? Basic instructions that you should follow, universal basically, all right? Some of them are displayed here, and maybe some of them they want you to apply on your own through previous knowledge that you should have had, right? Previous knowledge that you should have gained in your classes. All right. So let's look at the instructions I will go through. So type the document in Times New Roman, size 12, all right, except where otherwise instructed. Use legal size paper. It's legal documents. You're encouraged to use legal size paper. 1.5 for left, 0.5 for right margin. Now, for legal documents, usually the margins are top 2, 1.5 for left as you see here, 0.5 for right as seen here, and bottom supposed to remain on 1 each, right? So they didn't give any margin for top and bottom. However, right, if you should apply it, I don't think it would have been a problem. But following the instructions are necessary, right? But no instruction was given for top and the bottom margin. All right, so you should be good regardless. All right. Apply double line spacing with justified text or justify the spaces before right margin with unspaced hyphen. Basically, they're telling you to fill out the spaces. You should have learned this. When there's a blank space, when you're typing, you get a blank space, you fill out the lines with unspaced hyphen. Same thing as you want to call it. If you want to call it dash, right? You fill out the spaces with that. We look at it. All right. So let's look at the document itself. So right here, the heading, right? Name of the organization, center bold, Times New Roman and 14, right? For the size, you retain this. So you're going to type this as seen, right? So you use the symbol, the and symbol, and not spell out the word and. The word agreement must be in the center, yes. Expanded caps, 3 point. Put it in bold, Times New Roman and 12. Now, the expanded caps, that instruction and 3 point causes a confusion at times. Some persons may be thinking it means to increase the size. But if you notice, it says expanded caps, right? No comma was displayed, right? Expanded caps 3 point, right? So what they're instructing you to do, or what they were instructing you to do, was to place a space. Places in capital letters, of course, would put a space, actually 3 spaces, between each letter that you type. So you type A, you put three spaces. You type G, you put 3 spaces, and so forth. Now, you may be wondering, why is this necessary? These are things usually done for headings. So the same thing as spaced capitals, right? You should have learned about space caps. So basically, that's what you were supposed to do, right? We look at it. So right here, insert current date. So an agreement made on the. Now, it's important to know that you should write out or type out the information in words. The date should be typed in words. All right. So you should have learned when you were learning about legal documents, you should have been exposed to writing or typing your information and that are numbers in words. Now, an exception is with the address of a person. So if you get an address, you can put the number, like the building number or so forth, in numbers. However, if it's a date, it is supposed to be displayed in words. All right. So right here, you would put, the exam was done on the 8th, right? So you'd put the 8th, you'd write out the word 8th, day of May 2024. All right. That's what you were expected to do. All right. So all is well there. You follow the instructions as displayed, bold and caps. You omit that as it's crossed out. You omit that word as well. EA again, each, right? Down here again, EA, each. So write out the word each and so forth. All right, continuing. Terms and conditions. You don't change this to the word and you retain it. Use a symbol. All right, notice it says here in words and figures. So basically, you're going to write out the word 1,000. All right, and you still write the number per month. So MTH will be month, right? On the 30th of each, again, month. All right. They're saying run on right here. You know that basically means you're going to carry this up, right, to be in this sentence. So 2 weeks in advance, right? This would be weeks. 5 and 6 would go here, move here. Basically, it should come after number 4. All right. Basically, that's what should have been done. So down here is now 60 months, right, in words and in figures. And as we said, you write out the date in words. So whatever date it is, it says the 8th, you can use the 8th day of May 2025, write it out in words. All right, you see number right there. However, you can recall at the top, 2024, written in words displayed there. All right, so that's what we were expected to do for that section. Now, down here now, all right, down here where you would sign or where signatures would be placed, all right, we're seeing a number of things, right? You might see based on me, some person may have been wondering how to insert this. Now, this is actually a right bracket. You find it under basic shapes or auto shapes. And this can be done in a number of ways. Could type here, signed by, say, you put the person name, right? You tab here, you place the dots, right? Unspace dots, or unspace full stop, you tab and you put the name of the person. All right, you basically do that procedure over and over to display it how it is shown on the document. All right, and you'll find the right bracket in basic shapes. I'm basically going to show you. It's going to give you a sample of how it should have looked, right? Not the full thing, basically how it should have looked. All right, so see, the agreement should be 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3, right, between each capital letter. All right, on the right bracket, you find it under shapes as said. So it's here, right bracket. All right, so simple as that. That's what you were expected to do for the legal document, the agreement as displayed. All right, so let's move on. I'm going to move on to the next question. All right, and this question is a questionnaire. All right, let's look at the instructions. So they say you're supposed to use A5 paper, single line spacing, insert a page border, use columns. So they're saying you should use columns. Now this question, you know, persons were not so sure what to do. Some persons just typed it without putting it into columns, right? Some persons may have placed it in 2 separate columns, but based on feedback that I got, right, some persons didn't do that part to put it in columns. But I'm going to show you what you are expected to. All right. So yes, so columns and separated line, times New Roman 12, top, bottom and left margin 0.5 and right margin 0.4. All right, let's look at it. So this is a document right here. This is the heading, use header with single line, space, caps, center and bold, size 14 point, retain the abbreviation, right? So and you write that back as C. All right, instruction kind of tick. Some persons may not be so sure to find the tick, right, or the check mark. You know, you find this on the symbol and wingdings, right? It'll show you that, right? Align all responses number 1 to 5. All right, so basically it's quite simple. You type as C and you follow the instructions that are given. Center and italicize. Place in footer is TNR 9 point. Now this is a font type, right? Do not include circle. So this information displayed here should have been placed in the footer section of the page. All right. Basically, just going to show you a sample of how it was supposed to be displayed or created. All right. So the question here, basically. So you'd have to apply different breaks, right? They have to apply a continuous page break to actually display the information this way. All right. So a section break, basically, you're going to place one section and one column, of course, right? And then you place another section and 2 columns. Now you could put it on 3 columns and so forth, basically putting sections into different columns. All right. So for the tick, or the check mark, as I said, you go to insert, you go to symbol, and you go to more symbols, and you would go to wingdings. You go to wingdings, you scroll down to the end, and you'll see a check mark there. You can use that. All right, that's what you're supposed to use. And for the section where you see the line and it's into 2 separate columns, it's quite simple. Right, you know, you go to layout, you go to columns, right? Right here, as you've seen, it's on 1 column. That's because I'm right here. When I click down here, 2 columns, right? See it on the ruler, 1 column, 2 column. So I click up here, so 1 column, all right? But yeah, so for this section, go to columns. You could just click 2, however, the instruction said it should show a separation line between the columns. So you have to go to more columns, right? You click on the tool and you select line between. So when you check that, it displays a line to show separation between two columns. All right. And the boxes, you could use text box, you could use shape. I think text box is the easiest thing for you to use. All you're doing is inserting a text box, right? We're going into insert, right? And text box. You can use a simple text box and then you resize it, right? To look basically, at an appropriate size. All right. So as simple as that. And you should maximize on your marks. All right. So that's what you were supposed to do. As I say, use a border, right? A page border, a box border, and so forth. All right, students. So we're moving on to the next question. All right. I hope you would have done that. All right. So the next question now is question 4. The newsletter question. Now, newsletter is seen as a display work. That's the topic that you would have learned newsletter under. Right? A newsletter is seen as an advanced display. Right? Remember, on a display work, you look at simple displays and advanced displays. Right? So, newsletter, as I said, is an advanced display. Right? With creating a newsletter, you have to learn how to work with different column or section breaks, I can say, right? How to work with columns and section breaks and so forth. All right, similar to that of the previous question, which is the question. All right, let's look at the instructions and then we go through. So this one they're saying you must use legal size paper, right? So that you have more space basically, right? Use Times New Roman size 12, right? Except where you are indicated otherwise. Use the template as a guide and include a line separator. Basically, when you're separating the columns, you use a separator, as I showed you in the previous question, right? Use margins of 1 inch all around. Insert a double line page border, all right? Save the file as newsletter. All right, let's go through. So right here, the heading. The first thing is a confusion may have a little confusion may have happened right here, right? Some persons may have thought everything right here should have been displayed with the instruction or the editing required right here. However, based on my interpretation, the word newsletter is the only thing that these formatting should be applied to. All right. So this formatting should be applied to just the word newsletter. All right. And you type the name of the organization as is. So let's look at why. So use expanded word art. All right. Use expanded word art. I don't think they will require you to use expanded. Remember, we'll talk about expanded, right? Letters or expanded caps. Basically, you're going to put a space between each letter. All right. So I don't think they will require you to do that for this information up here. So it is the newsletter that you're going to put a space and capitalize, right? Remember, word art is what you should use. It's already capitalized as seen. Algerian is the font type. The size is 28. Red is the color, and you put it in the center. All right, I'll show you how that is supposed to look. So when you get here, right, you insert a line just the same. When you get here, you could do this in two ways. You could use a section. You could use a section break or continuous break. Or you could just type this right here and tab over to the right and display this right here. Now you have to use a section break now, right? Or continuous. break where you would be able to separate this section of the document into three separate columns. All right. So you separate the document into three separate columns and you type the information as is. All right. Following the instructions given. So a number of instructions are here. Follow as instructed. This is a font type, right? Line spacing 1.5 and you left align the information. Insert a suitable graphic here, insert page number. So you're supposed to insert a graphic or I can say a picture, right? Your suitable picture. All right. So when you skip to the next column, all right, everything is good right here. When you reach here, they are saying you should use a flowchart to display the text. Now, you should have learned about flowchart creation in the same topic display work, right? And a flowchart is also an advanced display, right? So the newsletter and a flowchart falls on the same topic. Now, when creating a flowchart, you use flowchart specific shapes. So you could do that, or you could try to get a template and change the shapes, right? There are many ways in which you could do it. All right, we'll look at that when I show you a sample of what you were supposed to do. Over here, type the information in a bulleted list. So you're going to use bullets right there. Down here, you could use a table. So you could draw a table, right? Basically, three columns. Right? You could do that and type information as displayed. Follow the instructions, right? You see this displayed right here is an instruction, right? Nobody typed this, right? It's an instruction, all right? This section, you could go on the internet and you get this image. You get an image like this. Same thing over here, it's an image as well. You could get a QR code from the internet, insert it right here. All right, right here, let's say use a callout shape to enter this text. All right, so we show you how to find the callout shape for those who don't recall. All right, down here, they're saying use a text box. When I show you how to insert a text box, all right, you should know how to insert a text box. So basically, that's all you were supposed to do right here. Type the information as displayed, follow the instruction as you see. Bold, just simply just put that on bold and use a text box to display this information. All right. So that's the last question, students. That will be the end of the test. Right. And as you can see, as you would have known, as you did the exam, the questions are quite easy, easier than expected. All right. So I hope you would have learned a number of things. I hope you would have did a number of these things on the actual exam. All right. Number of these things you should have done in the actual exam. Let me just show you the sample of what you were supposed to do for the newsletter. Right. Basically, as I said, space capitals and you apply to the word newsletter. Right. This is a flow chart right here. Right. In the creation of a flow chart, you have specific flow chart shapes, right? The terminator, which is used to start and end the flow chart process, right? These are process shapes, right? This is what I use. I basically use a template using smart art and then I changed the shapes to the flow chart specific one, right? That's what I did for that section. But you could have drawn it, right, using the shapes, the basic shapes or the flowchart specific shapes. As you see, the section says flowchart. You could have drawn it. So whatever you did, right, as long as you follow the instructions, you should have no problem in maximizing on your marks. All right. And as I say, you draw a table right here. All right, students. So, as I said, I hope you learned a lot, right, from today's video, right? I hope you would have done majority of what you would have been instructed to do, right? The test is quite easy. The exam was quite an easy one, right? I hope you feel more confident now going into the paper one, all right? So I'm going to end the video now, all right? As I said from before, I'll be doing a video for the paper one. I'll be doing a video as a preparation for paper one. I will also be going live on the night before the exam. I'll give more details as the time gets closer, right? But I'll surely do a video for the paper one first, and then, as I said, on the night, right? Not too late, on the night before the exam, we do basically a final exam preparation, a final exam run through, right? So that can boost your confidence going into the exam the following day. All right. So remember, students, to like, to share, to subscribe, of course. All right. I'm the EDPM boss. And I'll see you next time.